Hey guys, I'm Dave and welcome to the Trull Gallery. Today, I'm going to show you how to install undermount drawer slides. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, installing the drawer slides aren't that difficult. The challenge comes in building the box to fit the slides. As you can tell, I've already got a piece that needs drawers. I've got my drawer slides. So now let's just jump in, build some drawers, and see if we can't get this all to work together.
I'm old enough to remember when this was about the only option available for drawer slides. They worked okay and they're still available. The only good thing I can say about them is they're inexpensive. I'm not sure when ball bearing drawer slides became popular, but I started using them about 30 years ago. They're sturdy and they now have several options. Believe it or not, soft close and full extensions were not always available. Good quality slides can handle a lot of weight and will last for years. The downside of these guys is they're not exactly good looking and you generally lose a ½ inch on either side of your drawer box. Then along came undermount drawer slides. They have all the features of side mount, but they're virtually hidden from view. And now that they've been around for a while, they've become more cost effective. You don't lose that 1 inch of side-to-side space, but you do lose some drawer depth. How much depends on how your drawers are built, but more on that in a minute. To get started, you'll need a cabinet to put your drawers in. I just happen to have a vanity in the shop that needs 8 drawers, so we'll use that. You'll also need some drawers, and we'll start on those next. I'm making my drawers from ½ inch Baltic birch plywood. It's stable, flat, and there are no interior voids. This plywood has 9 even layers. It looks nice just as it is, so I don't bother edge banding my drawer stock. I start by ripping down my stock into manageable sizes. I usually rip my stock wide and come back and make a second pass to get my final width. Trying to get perfect rip cuts on large sheets can be difficult. I set up my stacked dado to the same width as my plywood and set the fence a ½ inch away from the blade. Now I can run all my stock to cut a groove for the drawer bottom. 1/4 inch ply could also be used for the bottoms, but I like the extra strength I get from using ½ inch ply. I set my blade depth for 1/4 inch and cut my dados. As I'm working, I choose the best face for the interior of the drawers. I know most people don't look at drawer boxes, but I do, and I think the nice face should face in. One of the things I'm looking for are the patches on the face. The Baltic birch that I get here usually has one good face and one okay face. If you look at the ply on the bottom, there's a patch that looks, well, it's weird. The patches on the good face are ovals and tend to be cleaner. We'll see if we can hide most of those weird patches later. With the bottom dados cut in all my stock, I took everything over to the router table where I chucked up a 1/4 inch roundover bit. Each piece gets 3 passes, easing the edges that will be accessible. The bottom inside edge stays squares that'll be hidden by the drawer slides, although I do ease it slightly when I sand everything. I like to pre-finish my drawer parts before assembly. Even with an HVLP spray system, getting a perfect finish inside a drawer can be a challenge. By finishing the parts beforehand, I can spray and sand everything and not have to fuss with inside corners and such. Since my shop is smallish, anytime I have a lot of parts to finish, I spray them on all sides and then hang them to dry. If you'll notice the large piece in the center, that's for the 8 drawer bottoms that I'll cut later. While the drawer parts are drying, it's time to prep the cabinet. If your sides are in line with your face frames, or you have frameless cabinets, you can set the slides in place and fasten them directly. If your face frame is proud of the side and you have solid backs, you can fasten the slide to the face frame and the back of the cabinet with the included rear bracket. My cabinet's a little different and will only have 1/4 inch thick plywood back panels. Since that's not enough to hold the drawer slides, I've made some filler strips. They're wide enough to fill the space behind the face frame and the same height as the drawer slides, and I'll use these to secure the slides to the box. To make installation easier, I pre-drilled 3 mounting holes on each filler. They're centered on the strip and laid out so they wouldn't interfere with any of the slide mounting holes later. A drill press with a fence and a depth stop make quick work of this. I want to make sure that when I attach the strips to the cabinet, the screws will not penetrate the sides. The stop on the fence also helps to speed things up. Here you can see the end holes are offset, but the center hole is, well, centered. And just because I know me, I'm going to mark the front face of all my fillers with the hope that that will prevent me from putting one in backwards. Before committing to the slide locations, I laid out my drawer fronts on some scrap material with the strip acting as the bottom of the cabinet. Then I could lay my drawer faces in place with the appropriate spacers and mark the top of each drawer. From those marks, I can offset the drawer slide locations by 3/8 of an inch. These slide locations can now be transferred to my spacer or another piece of scrap. I use these marks to trim my spacer board down as I install the drawer faces. I set the spacer in place and used that to support the first filler strip and secured that to the cabinet with some number 8 screws. With that in place, I could mount the slide to the filler. Since the spacer is the same width as the slides, I lined up the slide with the spacer and the front of the slide an 1/8 inch in from the inside of the face frame and secured it in place. Sorry, but there's no good way to record some of these steps. 3 more screws complete the installation. I moved the spacer to the other side and used it to support the left slide while it was fastened in place. I did the same for the opposite side of the cabinet before cutting my spacer down to my next mark. Then I could repeat the process for the second and third sets of slides. The bottom set of slides were a bit easier since they sat on the floor of the cabinet. Once I've got 3 coats of finish applied to the drawer box parts, it was time to start cutting them to final length. I made these cuts at the miter saw and set a stop to keep my parts the same size. First I'll cut the drawer sides, and in my case they're 15 inches long. I start by squaring one end and then cut the piece to size. Again, I'm looking for the cleanest pieces since both the inside and outside of the sides will be seen. I'll be using a rabbet and dado joint to assemble these drawers. James over at Stumpy Nubs has a great video showing how to make drawers like this, and I'll add a link to that video below. Since we know that 1/2 inch plywood is never 1/2 inch, I use my calipers to help with the setup. My stock measures 12 millimeters, and I set my dado stack for a 6 millimeter wide cut. My fence is set so that the dado is 6 millimeters up from the bottom, and the blade height is set to 6 millimeters deep. With the saw set up, my next step is to cut the grooves on the drawer sides. I use my miter gauge to support the stock as I work, and make a pass on both ends of the inside of the drawer sides. Once all the sides were cut, I could prepare the front and back pieces. Just make sure you don't make any adjustments to your table saw setup. We'll need that in a few minutes. Determining the width of the front and back pieces takes a bit of figuring. The first time I used these slides, I tried to follow the directions, and I like to think I'm fairly bright, and I thought I was good at math, but my test pieces just did not fit. Let's see if I can make this easier for you. I bought these Rockler Centerline soft close drawer slides, and they come with 8 pages of directions. This is the image that should be most helpful in sizing our drawers. You can do all the math, starting with the drawer opening width, adding the drawer side thickness and all that, but as I'm looking at this for the 100th time, I see an easier answer to all that math. The front and back pieces need to match the outside width of the sliding portion of the 2 drawer slides. Just remember to add in enough stock for the joinery you plan to use. If you plan to use simple pocket hole joinery like I did here, the width of the front and back will equal that distance. Since I'm using grooves and rabbets, I'll need to add the width of those 2 tenons or the thickness of one of the side stock. Measuring with the tape is fine, but I prefer to use referential measurements, which I found to be more accurate and just as fast. Just set all your parts in place, make a tick mark on some scrap stock, and cut that to length. I use a stop block at the miter saw as I creep up on my mark, and once you have the length just right, you can cut all your pieces to size. Going back to the table saw with that same setup, you can cut the tenons on these pieces. This time the groove for the drawer bottom faces away from the blade. My measurements were off by a bit and left this thin piece of stock. The error was around 0.2 of a millimeter, and rather than fuss around with changing the blade width, then resetting the blade height and the fence, I ran all my stock as is. A few minutes with a sharp chisel and a touch of sandpaper, and my joints came together nicely. Before breaking down my saw setup, I gave the newly cut piece a test fit. So far, so good. Back at the table saw, I ripped down several strips for the drawer bottoms. Then I took them to the miter saw and cut them to length. Going back to the directions for the drawer slides, they show notching out the drawer back to allow room for the slides. By leaving the stock between the notches, you still have the groove to support the drawer bottom. Since these drawers are so small, I decided to rip the entire bottom of the backs off. I set my fence to remove the entire groove and then ran all my drawer backs. We'll add some bottom support soon. After dry fitting one of the drawer boxes together, I added a bit of tape on the bottom under the back. I marked the interior of the drawer back, and then used that to lay out the center point for a fastener. At the drill press, I pre-drilled this location on each drawer bottom. Again, a fence, stop, and depth stop make these repetitive cuts quick and easy. I also made sure to put the good face down, keep the interior of the drawer looking nice. We can finally assemble the drawers. A bead of glue in both side grooves, and a bit in the bottom slots will be enough to hold everything together. I can glue the bottom in because I'm not worried about wood movement on my plywood drawer bottoms on such a small drawer. Once all the parts are in place, a few clamps hold things together. I check for square, and once my diagonals match, I can flip the box over. I pre-drill through the pilot hole in the bottom and add a screw securing the bottom to the back. A quick wipe with a damp rag removes any glue squeeze out from these pre-finished parts. Before installing the drawers, we need to add a couple of holes in the back for support pins. Again, you can work off the drawing or, like me, set the drawers in place and push them against the pins. Now you can use those dents as a center point for a 1/4 inch diameter, 3/16 inch deep holes. I drilled mine with a brad point bit and a stop collar to make sure I didn't go too deep. Undermount drawer slides come with these connectors, and they would secure the drawer box to the slides. They're marked left and right as seen from above. So the left is on the right and the right is on the left, at least when the drawer is upside down. I used a scrap of plywood to make sure the connector didn't sit proud of the face, held it snug to the corners, and pre-drilled the drawer face with a self-centering Vicks bit. Pre-drilling these minimizes the chance that your drawer face will split when you're driving in the screws. These holes get 2 of the larger mounting screws, and the rear of the connector gets a small, shorter screw. Once both connectors are secured, you can slide the box in place until the runners lock in. You should hear a click on each side. Before attaching the drawer faces, I removed the drawer boxes and pre-drilled 2 mounting holes in each one. I know no one will notice things like this, but I laid out their location so they're about centered on the drawer box and far enough out so the screws will be driven into the stiles of the drawer face. Using a countersink ensures that the head of the screws will sit just below the interface of the drawer box. Working from the bottom up, I replaced the first drawer box and set the drawer face in place. I've checked the spacing several times, so I know that the spacing will be 3/32 between faces and 1/8 of an inch on either side. A couple of quick grip clamps hold the face in place while I pre-drill through the box into the drawer face. The two are secured together with some number 6 by 1/8 screws, and larger drawers may need more fasteners, but these will get some extra strength once the drawer pulls are installed. I repeated this process for the next 2 drawers, maintaining my spacing as I went. Drilling and driving from the inside of the cabinet was awkward at best, so once the faces were clamped in place, I carefully removed the drawer and took it to my bench to drive in the fasteners. The top drawers were a bit different. I couldn't get a clamp in place with the face frame there, so I pulled out the drawer below it, set my spacers, and added the top drawer front. And I lined up the sides of the 2 drawers before clamping and screwing the face in place. With all the drawers in place, I just have to make a few minor adjustments, but these drawers are ready to go. Now, to deal with the doors.
When you first look at the directions that come with undermount drawer slides, they can seem a bit intimidating. I hope I've taken some of the mystery out of the equation for you. And while these drawer slides may not be the perfect solution for all your drawer needs, they are sturdy and good looking. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. Is there something I could have done different, easier, smarter, safer? Drop them in the comments below. As usual, I'll list some of the tools and equipment I used in this video and around the shop on a daily basis, and some of them have affiliate links. Should you need one of those items and purchase it through those links, it does help keep this channel going. If you enjoyed this video, maybe give it a thumbs up and share it with friends. If you haven't already, maybe it's time to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notified each time I put out a new video. As usual, I don't have a clue what's coming up next, but it should be something interesting. Until then, have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.